There's something funny that happens every time you encounter someone with an Italian first or last name.
This is Auto Collabs.
Your voice always changes.
You gotta
know?
change it. It's gotta go a good a bigger. It's gotta get a bigger.
And I feel like everybody in the world can do some level of Italian accent. Like they can, like it's somewhere between Boston Italian, somewhere in that range, right? And everyone can kind of pull it off.
Where do you think that came from, though? Because like obviously real Italians.
I think honestly,
Quick
it came from like 50s to 80s mob movies. That's where it came from. It came from The Godfather. It came from
Cirillo is bent over right now.
He's like,
because you know why he is
just thinking out loud here.
Because that is totally response Cirillo would have given either one of us deadpan. That's how it works. But I think you're right, Kyle. I think it is definitely the caricature, but I've never been to Italy, so I don't know. Cirillo, have you ever been to Italy?
There's too many Italians there.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, hey, look, we're not really sure if our guest
Italian, so
yeah, right.
We're not really sure if our guest today is actually Italian, but Mike Colacchio, is kind of similar along those lines. You gotta bring the fingers in, you gotta change the accent. Mike, he's been around auto for a long time with back to dealer.com days and DealerInspire and now AutoLeadStar, and just has always been in the innovative tech game. So I'm interested to see like how the new journey with AutoLeadStar is going and what he kind of draws from the experience across automotive, because he's got just a vast experience with some of the most innovative companies as they come along.
Well, I think that's as much intro as we can handle on this episode. Michael's still trying not to laugh. We hope you enjoy our conversation with Mike Colacchio.
So your professional career actually didn't start at dealer.com, Mike Colacchio. Your LinkedIn told me that you started in snowboards.
The truth. Oh, now Boulder makes so much more sense. All right. It's all together.
Got him. So, Okay, so take us back. You're like doing snowboards, taking care of retail, and then it's like, whoosh, here we come.
Transportation.
Automotive.
Right.
Transportation.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny. So like how I got into auto, I grew up in a little town called Burlington, Vermont. And for the people that don't know, that's where DDC started, ironically. And I worked at Burton Snowboards in the off season. So I was actually pursuing a career to go play baseball. So I was playing, minor league baseball. So, and in the off season, I actually worked in customer service at Burton Snowboards because it worked out perfect. I would work there in the winter, and then when spring training was going around, I could just head out. So anyways, I worked customer service there and took people return orders for jackets and ripped seams and all that stuff. And then ironically, I always believe that everything happens for a reason. I was in the outfield for batting practice, and all my buddies were working at this company called dealer.com. And I was like, the hell is dealer.com? It's like a drug company or something. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, what is this?
So good. Is that mainstream now? They're just doing it on the internet? Or?
Yeah. So anyways, I remember I like threw something in a long time ago, and I was in the outfield and I had a phone call, and it was like, hey, this is so-and-so from dealer.com. Fast forward, I actually
you're at practice and you got a phone call and you picked it up?
I was at batting practice for the game, and I had my cell phone on me. I was shagging fly balls, and my phone rang, and for some reason I picked it up because whoever was hitting wasn't hitting it into the outfield. And they're like, hey, this is so-and-so from dealer.com. Do you want to interview for a sales job? And I was like, I'll take the call, whatever. Ironically, I got released and got a job offer from dealer.com to go start working on inside sales within like a week. So I was like, wow. Well, shit, I just got released.
What a change of scenery.
What a week. Good. He's like, I got snowboards and baseball.
Yeah.
Inside sales at and at dealer.com. But that was the early days. I mean, you were early on. You probably were a numbered employee at some point at dealer.com.
Yeah, I was like 220 or something like that.
Wow.
I got hired to do inside sales, and I never knew I wanted to be in sales. Like I got released. I was like, what the hell am I going to go do? And it was right when Dealer.com signed the exclusive with FCA. It was FCA back at that time in 2008, right when they went into, the GFC, and they were losing franchises, and I got into auto, and we were talking about dealers. It's so funny. Back in 2008, we were talking to all dealers, specifically Stellantis, about what paid search was. We're like, listen, you only pay for it when someone clicks on the ad. And they're like, bullshit. And we're like, no, seriously.
No. They're like, so you're telling me, right, to do the whole thing. $0, $0, correct. 0 pennies. Right?
Yeah. So that was fun back then. So I got to work. Ironically, throughout my career, I was thinking about this the other day. Every company I went to has a tie to, what is now called Stellantis. So when I went to DI just got the Stellantis agreement when they went from exclusive to preferred. Right. And then, now fast forward at AutoLeadStar, we have an amazing relationship with Stellantis as well.
Wow. All right. So here's a question that I have, because
you've been in. Kyle, that was a good one. That was a pretty good one. We've had a lot of my first step into auto stories. That was a pretty interesting one.
Look, that was amazing. Like here's what we're trying to do here at the end is try and figure out how we can find the through line to snowboard customer service and baseball in your current career. So we're going to try and get there. Yeah. And you may know that, but if you don't, we'll try and get there, because it's like a challenge that Paula and I throw at ourselves every time. But I'm always interested in someone that, like, most people don't wake up like when they're 16 and be like, man, I hope one day I'm the VP of sales of an organization, right? You kind of get into the sales, and maybe there's a I don't know what your perception of sales was. Like, maybe sales is good, maybe sales is bad when you started. But I guess, like, ever since you kind of hit the scene in automotive in a sales role to now, what kind of excites you or keeps you energized, or the reason why the sales persona is something that makes sense for you and that you see as like a valuable part of the ecosystem of technology in automotive?
Yeah, great question. So when I first got into sales, selling to the Stellantis dealers, I got my first, just on like what excites me about sales is, again, this was like my first like real job, coming off the baseball field and, returning jackets at Burton Snowboards. I got my first commission check. And when I got my first commission check, I was like, wait a minute. And then I just started doing math. And I was like, if I do this, you're telling me that I can make this. So immediately I was like, all right, I'm just going to go absolutely, 100% all the time. Cause like, that's like, it's like you eat what you kill, right? It's like, if you go out, what you put in is what you get out of it. So that was what excited me about it, like on that side. And then, if you look at like where I was working, luckily I got to work with what in my opinion are some of the best people in the business. Like if you go back with like Mark, Rick, Jamie, Mike, and those guys, Dealer.com back in the day was an unbelievable story. Like, I don't know if that many people know this, but at one point DDC had 70% of the US franchise websites in the entire country.
Most people don't know that, including me.
Yeah.
I do know.
It was unbelievable. And they back at back then we had Mark Von Figli, who was the founder, they had like organic cafes. They had a cycling room that powered this is before a culture of like the Googles and stuff was like around there. So like representing good technology is just super fun. And that's what I'm passionate about. That's why I left DI to come over to AutoLeadStar. Is like when you can go out and have a conversation and bring something that's like, one is cutting edge, and two, it solves a lot of people's problem. That makes sales a hell of a lot easier. right? Because you have this great product, and I always want to surround myself with unbelievably smart people. Like when I went to DI with Chura, I went to go sell, no, not many people know this story, but I went to go sell Joe a DDC website when he was the internet manager at Riverview Ford.
Ah, yes. Yeah, back in his dealer days. That's great.
So, and ironically, he didn't buy the website from me. Right. He bought it from Matt Cole, who was his co-founder at DI, which is always a funny story because, you know, Joe, as we went through, I always like touched base with him. He's a super smart guy, as you guys have all interacted with him.
Yeah.
You know, I just always texted with him and we always stayed in contact. But the running joke is that I couldn't sell him a DDC website, but when I went to DI, he trusted me with, you know, his sales organization and building that up. So like, reason why I say is that I just always want to be surrounded by one, smart people, and two, the technology that you get to bring to dealers is always like very eye-opening, especially like what we're doing here at AutoLeadStar. It just makes it fun, and you have to believe in the product. And when you believe in the product, everything naturally kind of goes from there.
Well, there's a cool thing about what you're doing right now in the sense that the more times you are a part of something in a similar phase, in a similar stage, you start to like get the benefit of pattern recognition and like, oh, I've seen this before. This is really what we need to do, or how we need to proceed. You know, with your current role, what are some of the patterns you recognize from your DDC days and throughout your career that you can say, you know what, I think this is the spot we're in with, you know, this, you know, data sharing, and like, what do you see the similarities between that?
Yeah. So like if you look at where DDC was like on the website side, they were the first ones to really come out with like a really good like ecosystem to create like, you know, a digital platform. And then on the DI side, what Joe and team, you know, built was like, they were just innovating at this insanely, the pace of their innovation was just crazy. It's like they were the first ones to come out with like the video. I'm sure you guys remember this, Kyle, when they came out with the video homepage. Like when that first came out, when I was at dealer.com the days, and everyone was like, what the heck is going on? Like that. Right, everyone's like, oh my God, give me a video on my, you know, on my homepage of my service
drone operator. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and just, you know, everyone is very visual. And then also like when you look at like what our own and team, you know, are building, you know, that was one on the website side. And you kind of go through these like cyclical phase. Like website was a phase where there was like 40 website companies, and now there's probably 5 or 6. And then it got into DR, and there was like, you know, 5 or 6, and now there's like 40 of them. But now when you look at like what's going on the data side, and especially what's going to happen, you know, when Google stops pushing it back with first party data, the ability to go in and orchestrate and connect that data is one, it's a huge opportunity that dealers are not doing right now. Like we talk with dealers all day long, and they have this massive database that they're literally just sitting on. And if you look at like the Walmarts, the Targets, and all that stuff, like they launched their own ad network and ad platform because they have an unbelievable amount of first party data.
Yep.
And on the dealer side, to connect that and automate it, which is another topic where some people are afraid of automation. If you can do that and unlock that, and you know, we always talk about customer data platforms, and we're a customer data experience platform. Outside of automotive, they are everywhere. All of the top brands are using it, but you can't do it. Well, you can do it now, but you couldn't do it in auto purely the way that our data is structured. Mm-hmm. Luckily, our guys have, you know, AutoLeadStar figured out a way to connect that data. And so that's where I saw the opportunity to come over.
So you see that pattern, you see it coming through. What is the thing that is in the way right now? Right? Like what is the thing that's in the way of like mass adoption or mass deployment?
Yeah. So we're doing a ton of education on like what it is, because when we talk to these dealers, and, you know, I mentioned, you know, being afraid of automation, a lot of dealers are really just in tune with like pulling the lever. Like they need the friction point to pull the lever, and they don't want to say, all right, well, we can actually use and look at ones and zeros to look at the data and say, great, here's the output. Now we're going to do this. That aspect is really just like, not saying it's like, hey, just let the machine do it, but the purely on the education, because it's never been done before. Like Kyle, when you were at your dealership, I'm sure you were like, God, it'd be so awesome if my CRM could literally talk to this. And if you made a call to your CRM company to say, hey, can you work with, vendor X, Y, and Z? They'd say, yeah, go pound sand. We'll get to it on Q5.
Yeah. Q5. So basically what you do is you go to this report generator that breaks every 8 minutes. And then once you get to the report generator, you download the CSV file. It's 10,000 pieces in it, and you're going to have to filter through because half the names are broken. Once you get that synced up, then you can potentially send it as an email. But watch out, because there's a lot of privacy laws when you start downloading that stuff, right? And
don't worry, you got this.
But don't worry, you're going to be fine, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a big deal. It's interesting to me because when you look at, you didn't say OTT, but when you look at this, it's like dealer.com days. You're educating on SEM, right?
Yeah.
In 2008, 2009, that's not a new thing in like the world of marketing, right? That had already been around. So you're educating on that. And then, we get to like the mid-teens and we're really educating on OTT and connected TV, video platforms, and dealers are learning what they were doing on traditional actually applies at a deeper level there. And now we're learning that, we've been sitting on these databases for so long, and we say this word CDP, and all of a sudden it sounds like this big scary thing. And what you're saying is, no, it's just connecting the data points to enable advertising and user experience and all of that and all of that down the line. I'm interested to see like what's that next thing that comes. Like what is actually, because if I think about SEM and the audience strategies and things like that, that's the unlock to the learning of OTT.
Right.
And when you think about all like the unlock to learning, for a CDP was really, like you said, Google and Apple kind of coming away. There's always these unlocks. And I'm wondering if there's an unlock at the CDP or CDXP or data connected layer that is just beyond it, that we're going to have to educate, because now that we've kind of done all these things, now we have to educate on this. Are you seeing that next trend over the horizon on the unlock of what we need to get to?
I think right now to get to the next unlock is we just need to get people ingrained with like their new like world. Like they've had this like world, and you're basically lifting up like the cloak and saying, look, you can actually use all this stuff. So the ability to really like leverage the data that they have and moving through like what we just released last week with like data lake, like that's another like thing it's been around forever, but we just couldn't do it in auto because all the data is do it. I do think like not to go around your question, but I do think that as these become more ingrained in automotive, I believe that the vendor ecosystem, because the dealers are going to demand it, and I talk with dealers all the time, they hold the keys to this. Like, who pays the bills for all the vendors, present company included? If they need to get a better open ecosystem, I think what we're going to get out of it is we're going to get a better ecosystem where dealers or vendors are going to start talking to each other. Otherwise, they're going to get left behind, because if, insert vendor X, if they talk to vendor Y and it creates a seamless relationship, instead of just putting up the guardrails and saying, hey, this is us and this is our data, you can't have it unless you pay us X, Y, and Z. And guess what? We're not going to integrate,
Yeah. That's a big reason for this podcast, because there's this like triangle of relationship that we're actually like, we're going to make a diamond at some point. I'm trying to convince everyone, but there's this relationship like dealer, OEM, customer, industry partner, right? And right now they are like floating on islands for the most part. There's a lot more integration starting to happening, and really those relationships have to be super symbiotic, and especially, and I think you've nailed it, is this, and I'm starting to see it open up where industry partners are going, okay, fine. We're going to play ball together. We're actually going to work together. And I'm even seeing these like industry partners coming together and like supporting the dealer together, right? Where they're having meetings outside of the dealer and going, hey, mutual client, how can we serve the client better as a dealer? And the dealer's actually calling them out to that, going, hey, look, y'all gotta figure things out together, because I want to use each of you as partners, and I can't do that unless you talk better, right? And so I do think I'm seeing that as a more healthy relationship between dealers and industry partners. And I think that the more we can have those conversations, you're right, that it's actually going to speed up the ability to create better customer experiences, right? So,
Yeah.
And I love that. Like, you guys call it the CDXP in the experience. You know, if people are maybe familiar with a CDP, when you think CDXP, what's the experience part of that
Explain
you're
those
trying
two,
to?
Kyle.
So
Explain it for people that don't
CDP, customer data platform, right? So that's like all of your customer data in one place, and really it's really just a layer you're able to execute on. And you're saying that there's a customer data experience platform. So what's the experience part of it? What are you saying you're unlocking that's more than like a CDP?
Yeah. So like a CDP is basically like, and you just did a great job explaining it. On the CDXP, on the experience side, is that a lot of times when you look at your customer database and you can say, hey, you know, Paul bought a car this is Paul's third car. His lease is coming up, and I know that he's on my site and he's browsing, you know, BDP. So I'm going to trigger, you know, an email out to Paul that's actually going to be relevant, because I know where he's at, and I know what he's looking at, and I know what he already bought, and I know when that's maturing. So those four things is where you actually unlock, right? So that's when you actually do the activation. Now, on the experience side is when the end goal for every single person in auto is to drive them to where? Your website.
The store, the website, or
Right.
Yep. And
so
engagement.
if I do my marketing and it works, and I get them to the site, where the CDPs kind of fall right now is that when I get them to the site, I'm driving them to, let's say, if I'm leasing Paul a Telluride, and his lease is coming up, and I say, hey, Paul, we'd love to buy your Telluride. Here's the new 2022 or 2023. Here's your offer, and you land them. There's a break in marketing connectivity. And marketing connectivity is basically what enticed me to click on the ad or click on the email. And then when I get to the site, is it going to be there? Now, right now, it's not. I'm talking about in general automotive, right? So like if I send Paul that ad, basically what we're doing on the experience side is, because we're connected on the CRM and we have that data layer, when he goes to the site on the experience side, it'll say, there's a video that says, hey, Paul, here's your offer on the blah, 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 like whatever offer it is. So now you solve marketing 101, which is like, what did I click on? Then how do I get to it? And that's just purely on the experience side. And then if you think about digital retailing, like we had this huge boom of digital retailing that like went up and went down. And I was at DI when this happened. So like, it was like, oh my God, we got to do digital retailing. And everyone's like, we're selling so many cars, get this off my site. Right.
Right.
So, but when that was happening, if you think about this, and everyone's trying to move to this transactional site. So everyone advertises offers, probably not as much now, but they will be soon. If I click on that, we'll continue with the Telluride lease offer. If I'm retargeting Paul on Facebook or Google and he sees an offer for X vehicle, and I click on that, which is the offer that I'm enticed me to click on, name me one site where you can dynamically push the offer into the digital retailing tool on the BDP.
Right.
Non-existent.
No.
Right. So think about that on the experience side, is that I enticed him to click on that lease offer. Let's call it $199. I drive him to the BDP, and what's the first thing he sees? $399, blah, 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 X, Y, and Z. And guess what? The offer that he clicked on is nowhere to be found. So what we do is that we orchestrate that entire experience, advertising, email, audience, all that stuff. And then when they go to the site, it's smart enough to recognize what they did and what they clicked on, and it serves up the relevant offer. And that's where the X comes in the CDXP.
We talk about all the
There you
time.
go.
Like Kyle said earlier, that's what we're trying to do here with this podcast in general, and just the ASOTO community anyway, is to get people collabing and working together to solve the customer experience, because that is the way that franchise retail automotive is going to win, right?
Yep.
By working together to solve that. And the rest of the world is innovating very quickly, and EVs and new entrants to the, to the manufacturing game. All of that stuff is just forcing the velocity of innovation to increase. And like, if we stay in our silos, it's just not going to happen. So thank you so much for coming today and sharing your little corner of the world and what you're doing to solve the consumer experience. I know there's going to be a lot more coming from AutoLeadStar soon. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. It was a pleasure, and looking forward to Philly next month. It's going to be great.
I had a neighbor who played professional baseball.
Yeah, baseball in Canada?
Well, so the thing is, he played baseball
The
and then
Toronto
he.
Blue Jays, come on, man.
No,
I mean-
well, yes, the Blue Jay. I mean,
they have a
did,
dome though. Like, where do they practice?
on a field somewhere,
Outside?
a baseball diamond,
Ice rink?
the high school parking lot.
30 days in the middle of the summer. That's it.
It's baseball
My neighbor, his name was Monty. I can't remember his last name, but he got recruited by the Oakland A's, played
great
2
name.
full seasons with the Oakland A's. You know, imagine his whole life's dream was to make it to the pros. He makes it to the pros, takes a baseball to the wrist and breaks the only bone in your wrist that never heals.
No.
The end.
Good.
The end.
Yes.
What's he doing now?
He's a realtor.
Probably
He's in the
inside
auto
sales,
industry.
kind of like
No,
my
he's a realtor.
Colacchio,
He's like-
right? I mean, basically, that's what all good people do that don't know what to do with the rest of their lives is they go to sales. But here's what's interesting is Mike Colacchio, I love his story of like, I've basically gone to all of the places where I can't just tell you like we have a thing that you already know about. I'm telling you about a whole new thing that you've never encountered that's brand new on the market. Let me explain it to you. I'll give you the education and then maybe you'll buy it, right?
Sheesh.
That's a hard thing
heavy
to roll
lift,
into. Yeah.
You think that's kind of the baseball mentality though, right?
Yeah.
You just need a lot of patience, and you have the patience for things to develop, right? That's like the brilliance of a baseball player, right? It's a very strategic,
many levels of patience, especially an outfielder. Guys shagging fly balls.
Right.
You're like,
Oh my
I'm out
gosh.
here. Don't worry about me.
taking calls. I mean, that's who's shagging fly balls, and that's how he got into the auto industry. Took a call. Yeah, I'll come do that. And even the vibe, like, I don't know, he's got that like laid back vibe. I mean, the fact that he's just like he's a skier or snowboarder. I'm sorry. Work for Bird Snowboards. I don't want.
That would have been
Those are
rough.
fighting words. Those are fighting words. No, but the whole vibe is just like that friendly, laid back. Oh yeah, it's all under control, right? I don't know. I like people like that with a name like Colacchio.
Yeah.
Colacchio.
Well, hey, look, here's what I know is every single technology at some point becomes approachable for anyone. And I think that Mike's approach to bringing new technologies into the industry is one of education. So I appreciate that, like, we got to walk through a little bit of the CDP, the CDXP, because it's a new thing that automotive is having to approach. And so hope you got something from that episode. On behalf of myself, Paul J. Daly, and Michael Cirillo, thanks for joining us on Auto Collabs. We'll see you next time.
Welcome to Auto Collabs.